to Tomorrow's People, the podcast brought to you by Personio and me, Perry Timms. Everything starts with people. And the people on this podcast have a range of interesting views and experiences to bring to the fore about everything to do with work, the future, skills, and more. And I'm delighted that the guest for this episode is Lord Jim Knight, who in the past has been a minister involved in education and in employment, and is currently very active in a range of different skills and areas that we're going to talk about. So, Jim, welcome.
Thanks, Perry. Delighted to be here.
Thank you for giving it your time, because I'm sure it's a very busy time in the house at the minute.
There's a bit going on. It's been a funny old time because we've come out of the political chaos of the last few months, and the House of Lords really adds value by improving legislation as it's being made.
Yeah.
And the legislative programme, the laws that the government is trying to drive through Parliament have been as disrupted as everything else.
Yeah.
So some things have been dropped. We don't know what's happening to some other bills that we've been working on. I'm impatiently waiting for the online safety bill to come from the House of Commons so that we can get on with regulating social media and search and some of those other things online. But the House of Lords at the moment has been scratching its collective head at what the hell's going on with our government, and then being a bit frustrated. We want to get on with the job.
Yeah, sure. And I guess, in all walks of life and in all areas of the world of work, we've had a lot of kind of disruption and junctures and so on. But I'm really interested in starting with the Jim Knight story. So how did you get to here?
Well, growing up in Southeast London, never really believed I'd end up a baron in the House of Lords. That's a weird place to end up.
Yeah.
And the story really is, child of professionals. They were grammar school educated in Northamptonshire.
Yeah.
And therefore their destiny was to become professionals, which didn't involve going to university.
Yep.
My mum went into high street banking. My dad, an accountant. They got married. She stopped work, had kids. That story.
Yeah.
They could afford the privilege of buying me and my brother private education, and so our destiny in turn was to go to a good university and get a job for life and a final salary pension.
Right.
Now, life doesn't necessarily work out that way, but that sort of algorithm played out, if you like. My passion, though, that was released when I was in school. I was at the age of 12, 13, cast in Oliver in the West End. And so theatre was my first real love. And whilst technically I did a geography degree at Cambridge, really all I did was show off on the stage.
Yep.
And that employed me then a little bit as an actor. I started a theatre company with Sam Mendes and Tom Hollander and a few of those people. And then became a promoter. And then realised that actually I wasn't that good at being an arts promoter.
Right.
And I might be better as a politician. So I got a job with a next door but one neighbour selling telephone directory advertising to small businesses in the West Country, which was supposed to last 6 months because it was a pretty dull job.
Yeah.
But I ended up 10 years in that company. I became a director of the company in the end. But it taught me quite a lot it taught me how to sell and how to read people in order to sell successfully. It taught me how to cope with rejection.
Right.
Taught me how to talk to all manner of different sorts of people, from plumbers and roofers on the top of buildings through to solicitors and dentists and so on. And that proved to be really helpful in politics. And then when, Mayor of Frome, deputy leader of a district council, then an MP in South Dorset in the unlikely Labour seat as it was in 2001 of South Dorset. Did that for 9 years, 5 years as a government minister.
Right.
Environment, then education, then employment.
Right.
And then the fourth career change then, when the electorate caught up with me in 2010, was the House of Lords carrying on legislating, but then a sort of consultancy career. I had a spell for 6 years as one of the senior execs at TES, which is the company that used to be known as the Times Educational Supplement. But I founded their teacher training institute. It's now the fifth largest trainer of teachers in the UK, and did various other things there. And I'm now back in a portfolio career around education, technology, the interface between the two, really, whilst doing the legislative thing as well.
Wow. So I guess that journey, like you said, being able to sort of read people, to understand, and to then sort of meet them in their sort of space and understand what they need.
Yep.
When we think about education, that's kind of what we hope happens there, but it still tends to be a kind of programmatic thing, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And then when we throw technology in the mix, my goodness me, it just creates a whole different dimension of what people consume as content, where they end up going to find what's true and not true. And I mean, we've had some real technology turmoil, haven't we?
We have. At the moment, I'm thinking a lot about social media, and Elon Musk taking over Twitter, and I've decided to give Twitter a rest now that he's decided to give Donald Trump his amplifier back.
Yep.
But that's really young.
Yeah.
My daughter's now 34. She was 17, 18 when she went on a gap year and said to me, there's this new thing called Facebook. You should... it's a good place for me to exchange photos while I'm in Africa.
Yeah.
It's relatively young, all of that.
Yeah.
And yet it's massively changed the world. It's changed the way we do a lot of things. Hasn't really changed education.
No.
Education remains stuck in the model of the post-war era, really. And it's sort of predicated on an assumption, I think, that you use education to filter people with a set of qualification obstacles. And then some of them get to university and they'll go into these secure careers. And then everyone else will get mopped up by the economy in what at the time was factory work. Now that's largely gone because technology has moved the labour market on massively.
Yeah.
But education hasn't caught up. And my passion at the moment really is to try and get that change. I don't think the school system's fit for purpose. I don't think the education system really is fit for purpose. And we need to rapidly change it.
It's funny because I think everybody I talk to who's active in the world of work at the moment will say the same thing. Yeah. And yet it kind of lumbers on. And because you've been around those people, you often find nothing more dedicated than a teacher.
Of course. It's the largest single profession in the world.
Yeah.
And there's a shortage of them.
Yeah.
They are by and large dedicated professionals trying to do the right thing, but we put them in this extraordinary straitjacket of accountability with Ofsted coming and literally ending careers of school leaders if they get the wrong judgment. We've got all of this qualification data that we publish, but we are obsessed by academic scores.
Yeah.
Right now, according to NHS Digital, it was a while ago now, probably 2 years ago, they were saying then 1 in 6 of our young people have a mental health problem.
Wow.
And the strong sense, especially coming out of the pandemic. I don't know anyone who doesn't know of at least one young person in their lives who's got some kind of anxiety disorder, eating disorders, mental health problems of some sort. And that's a profound problem. So even before we think about education as the thing, the one public service that creates the future, the now is we're not doing enough with the one universal service for children to develop the social and the emotional and the mental health and the physical health of our young people. We're obsessed by academic scores. Now, knowledge is important. Skills are important. But a rounded, resilient, collaborative, communicative individual is what you need to thrive.
And do you think, to some degree, the world of work is picking that up? Do you think they are having to shape people and offer services and guidance and interpersonal skills because of that failing in the education system?
Yeah, I mean, if you talk to anyone who's hiring, by and large, of course, we all need people who can read and write and be digitally competent, etc. So the combination of skills and knowledge is important, and we're not doing very well on digital skills in our statutory education either.
Right.
But they also need curious, competent, resilient individuals. And if education's not delivering that, then they have to kind of shake it up and try and do something about it. And to be fair, there are other jurisdictions around the world who come here and go, how come there's so much creative talent here in the UK as expressed in the music industry and the film industry and our cultural sector and so on? What can we learn from you? And the experience of what we're doing through the accountability system of schools is we're stifling that very strength that people around the world look to Britain for.
Yeah, exactly that. And it does feel like art and science are in a sort of, not quite a battle, but there is a kind of standoff, I guess, I'm picking up between the two of them. And art seems to be the one that's suffering a little bit.
Yeah, we've got a STEM, science, technology, engineering and maths obsession.
Yeah.
And people talk about STEAM by putting the A in for art. And that's that has validity. Yeah. And there's a lot, maths skills, confidence around, If we could think about maths differently, if we called it problem solving and adapted the curriculum somewhat so that it really fostered those problem-solving curiosity skills and mindset, then it becomes a much more future-facing subject. Yeah. And that becomes quite exciting. Yeah. And so there are examples around what we could, I think engineering is not much in schools. Technology is pretty weak in schools. So it's sort of S&M, science and maths. But I also would say, if I future gaze, I'm co-chair of the Future of Work group in Parliament. And, I think about my stepdaughter at home who's 11. So she's in year 7 at secondary school, first year. And she'll probably be in statutory schooling till 2030. Yeah. Chances are she'll have a 50 to 60 year working life because that's the direction of travel. Yep. And she's come from an advantaged home, so she'll live that long. She'll be healthy enough. So that means that she'd be working potentially up till 2090. Oh, wow! Now you start to think about that and go, well, how is the labour market going to change? Over that 50, 60 year period? We're going to have to, if there's going to be anything left for that generation, have a sustainable economy. Yeah. So not just what you think of as green skills, but a mindset around reuse, around, not using virgin fresh resources, but how we sustain things, as well as wind turbines and whizzy science. So some of those craft skills have become much more important. And then we also look at AI, and Stuart Russell, who did the Reith lectures, he came and lectured to us in the House of Lords recently. Very interesting. I was kind of saying, well, by the end of the century, fair chance that we'll have machines that could do anything that humans currently do. Yeah. So for Coco in secondary school, in the labour market of her future, her competitor will be a machine as much as it will be another human. And what are schools doing about that? Nothing. Because they are educating children like machines. They are programming them to be good at knowledge recall. That's what machines are really good at. What machine? I don't ever want to go to lunch with a machine. Because I want an emotional, ethical, human interaction with someone like we're having now, Perry. And that's where we have a competitive advantage and always will. So what are we doing to nurture the ability of individuals to care for themselves, to care for each other, to care for that natural environment, to be better humans? And that's the only route. It's the only route to success.
And I guess I'm sort of picking some threads on the fact that I hope there are a lot of people asking that question and having that same deduction that you've had. So if they're not and they're listening to it now, there you go. But I guess I'll come back to the work you're on at the moment around the whole digital world. And how that's distorted who we are and what we're doing over the last sort of 10, 15 years, and how you're now working to kind of bring more balance, by the sounds of it, into that, and perhaps put control back in our human court. Would that be right?
That's right. I mean, the core of the analysis, I guess, as far as I see it, on social media in particular, but search, there's some similarities as well, is the business model is the place to start. So the business model for the platform is we need to maximize engagement, time spent on platform, in order to maximize advertising revenue. That's how it works. What that then means is the AI, the machine learning, will learn what engages us, what content keeps us going. And the sad truth is we like the outrageous. We like the obscene. It plays to often the worst part of us and not the best part of us. Doesn't necessarily make us feel better about ourselves. But it keeps us online, and it keeps us getting, generating impressions on the ads. What we now need is an intervention from, in the end, the state, from regulation. Has to be at an arm's length from politicians. So what the proposal is that Ofcom, as the regulator, and Ofcom are getting tooled up with the talent right now to do this, will impose regulation to put a moral and ethical framework around that. And it's really hard, because the bill is saying we've got to make the online world as safe for children as we possibly can. We've got to also improve the safety for adults, but without impinging on free speech. Now, those two are in tension, but we've got the World Cup at the moment. First game of the season, and Bukayo Saka and Bellingham, who both missed penalties at the end of the Euros and got huge racist abuse, happened to be the first two to score goals for England in the World Cup. And you're kind of going, well, there's a great redemption there, but what's just happened at Twitter won't necessarily mean that those very same players will be protected from racist abuse as this tournament plays out. That's just wrong. And we need both some. There are technology tools available to help protect them from seeing some of that harmful content. But actually, we need to intervene with the algorithms themselves and be able to say to them, actually, you've got machines and processes, systems and processes that amplify bad content. I could go on about this, Perry, but I would just finish with what we talk about when a few friends are talking about this, the Uncle Bob problem.
Right.
And the Uncle Bob problem is, this Christmas, you'll have your family Christmas feast, and you'll all be sat around nice and close to keep warm. And around the table will be Uncle Bob. And sadly, Uncle Bob is a bit racist. And he'll come up with some of his usual racist nonsense. And you'll all turn to Uncle Bob and say, oh, shut up, Bob. You know that's nonsense. And in the end, he'll be put back in his box. And that's fine. And that's just what happens. But if Uncle Bob posts the same racist nonsense online, the algorithm amplifies it. And suddenly, thousands of people, and that gets reshared and reshared and reshared.
Exactly.
And that's the problem. Is it's not. We don't need to stop Uncle Bob being an idiot. We just need to stop him being given a
megaphone.
A megaphone to go with his idiocy.
Yeah, that's exactly the image that I had in my mind. Was the difficulty with an online environment is that the machine is working almost against the moral obligation of the platform to connect people in a way that you described with your stepdaughter's gap year and or your daughter's gap year and so on. And I think there's genuinely something where we've seen this play out so many times now. A lot of people are sort of almost desensitized to it as well. It's gotten to the point of, I don't know what to believe. It's just sensationalist stuff. So I think there's genuinely something about us feeling lost in it.
Yeah. And I think for parents, it's really, really hard. We generally, there might be some young parents who grew up with it somewhat.
Yeah.
But for a lot of parents, they don't know what to do because they've got no lived experience themselves, really.
Yeah.
They'll be on Facebook, and then but their kids aren't.
Yeah.
What young person is
exactly.
But they're not on Snap, and they may be on Insta.
Yeah.
But they're not on whatever the latest thing is. And so it's really hard to understand. And the social dilemma, the peer pressure to let an 11-year-old be on WhatsApp. Now, terms and conditions say 16 is the minimum age for WhatsApp. And there's a good reason for that because the messages are encrypted.
Yeah.
So it's not a safe place for children. And yet most children are on WhatsApp.
Yeah.
Most children are on TikTok. And they're not on TikTok with a family account. They're on because quite often their parent has colluded about lying about their age. And so there is also a whole educative media literacy thing to be done with parents to get them to properly think about the safety of their child in these Wild West environments.
Yeah. Wild West is a good metaphor for it. You're absolutely right. So let's hope that there are mechanisms that come in that people can kind of learn their way into, and we can take a little bit more control over that. Because undeniably, technology can do such good, right? We've seen how it can galvanize spirit to brilliant outcomes.
Totally. And, I'm a tech evangelist by and large. And, I'm on the board of a company called Century Tech that's, particularly during the pandemic, grew significantly using AI to sort of wrap science, maths, English learning around where individuals were at, help teachers be able to identify the gaps in their understanding so that they can play to that and take them through personalized journeys through the curriculum, through the subject. Really powerful, really successful. Other similar platforms are available. And that's just one example. And there are some really simple things, in terms of the green economy. I learned to darn the other day because the bloody moths of Southeast London have been out my... and it's a lovely restorative, contemplative, meditative thing to learn to do as part of keeping our resources going. But I'm also a fan of Repair Shop. And you think about the power of YouTube positively to help instruct people on how to repair and fix stuff. Now there are all sorts of other problems with YouTube taking you to bad places. But so we can't write off any of these platforms as being wholly bad, but they're definitely not wholly good. And let's just try and steer it all to a good place.
And it does circle back to the whole role of education in creating adults who can, adults and young people who can be very discerning about their use and understand what it's for and so on and so forth.
This podcast is brought to you by Personio. Personio is the all-in-one HR solution for now and the future. We help HR teams recruit, onboard, manage, pay, and develop employees more efficiently. And our easy-to-use solution works across every part of the employee lifecycle. Automate your people processes and gain time back for more impactful work, like creating your people strategy. After all, everything starts with people. To find out what Personio can do for you and your business, head to personio.com. That's PERSONIO.com.
So is there something about the world of work and its opportunities that I guess we are currently having to, build on some of those educational failings that you can see quite easily would come into the sort of education system, whether that's the world of employers coming into that space or the education curriculum changing? I'm thinking about things like money awareness and emotional intelligence and understanding diversity and inclusion, those kind of things, because they seem so like a no-brainer in the world of work that's exactly what builds high performing, sustainable and productive people. I just wondered what your thoughts were on that, whether the work equation sort of comes into the education world.
It definitely does. I do some work with another US company called Everfi, and they precisely try and connect up employers with teachers, with schools.
Okay.
They started in the US around financial literacy.
Right.
So the sort of banking sector funding teaching content of a high quality that was then freely available for teachers to help improve financial literacy. And then that's extended into a whole bunch of things, digital literacy, mental health, etc. But it's sort of a missing learning layer that the employer community is sort of going, it'd be really helpful if people could learn some of this stuff at school. Now, there's a time capacity in the curriculum problem. But there's a lot that can be done within the existing curriculum to bring some of that real world stuff. I've got a friend who's a successful, now BAFTA award-winning actor, and she's in her early 20s. And I remember 5 years ago, she left school at 18. She had great A-levels. She decided to go straight into work as an actor.
Right.
She was staying with us in London, and we said, "Oh, you are remembering to put a bit of money aside for your taxes." She's going, "What?" And your national insurance. Well, what's that? There was someone with 4 A-levels, most of them A grades, who'd not learnt the basics of how you manage your money. And it's shocking. It's really shocking. And we do have to do a lot better on that. And lots of schools are trying to do it, but it's always a bit of an afterthought rather than being embedded into the learning experience.
And do you look at systems like those in Finland and other areas that I hear about as being more progressive and building more rounded individuals that are much more sort of good on the citizenship side? Do you sort of look enviously at those, or do you think they're almost synonymous with culture?
Yes and yes.
Okay. Right.
So you can look enviously at them, but you also have to accept this is a different context.
Yeah. Okay.
So if I look at Finland, at the Baltic states, they're really good on media literacy. It's an issue of national importance for the whole adult population as well as children, that they've got a neighbour, Russia, who is a defensive threat, and they all have to really understand cybersecurity and they all have a part to play, and that's a national mission. Now we're a million miles from that here, but that's a cultural difference. Finland's a small place. It's got a long-standing cultural attachment to education where teachers are held in much higher esteem than they are in this country. That means that they trust the profession of teaching far more than we do, which means that they don't test their children anywhere near as much as we do, which releases a whole bunch of resource, time and money to do other things apart from testing them, which is slightly dead use of time, but we are addicted to it.
Right. I did wonder about that, because you sort of get excited about these stories and opportunities and kind of think, well, surely it's just a lift and shift. But as you're rightly saying, it's not at all that. There's established barriers and things that would block that from happening.
And I think I've tried to think about this quite a lot, about what's the sort of theory of change, if you like, for education. And having been schools minister for 3 years, being a policymaker now, you're influenced by voters ultimately. Now, voters are influenced by the media. But at what point will parents, what point will the media start to demand a shift? Now, I think we're quite close to that now. But, an interesting test for your listeners is they might say, share all the frustration that we talked about, and they'll want more kids to do apprenticeships. They'll want, they're not sure about 50% going to university, etc. But they still need to ask themselves, what about my children? Am I content for my child to go to the local school and not try and buy them privileged access to, and I don't criticize my own parents for choosing to do that for me. But am I happy for my child not to go to university and get an apprenticeship and take that route into work? There might be. But there's a question we all have to ask ourselves. If we're going to advocate for significant change, it's got to include significant change for my children as well as everybody else's.
Yeah. So that's a really great starting point. And of course, we've seen different options, haven't we? One of the things I've been interested in is things like the advent of Montessori schools coming in and people teaching through non-subject based curriculum, but almost like life instances.
Yeah, and there are a few good examples of innovative schools, normally in the private sector because they're not regulated in the same way, who are doing things differently, doing more project-based learning, more problem-based learning, some different ethos, etc. Now, those are harder to teach. So you need a higher quality of teacher who can essentially look at the design of these projects, understand which bits of the curriculum they're touching, see where the gaps in the knowledge that's being scaffolded might lie if they're not supplemented alongside the project, or help guide as part of the project-based learning through some of that knowledge. But I'm a big fan of it, but it's quite a tough ask. And so sometimes we're in state-maintained schools where that's being tried, it falls over because the teachers aren't ready. They've been trained to teach in a particular way for a particular sort of approach. And as we try and change education, one of the things we'll have to do almost in advance is teacher training, so that those 500,000 people doing that job are ready for it.
And it's interesting when we look at it through the world of work lens, and you've got kind of learning and development teams in a professional capacity or having to teach things like strategic leadership, but they've never done it themselves, but they've had the gift of somebody helping them understand how to interpret and facilitate a conversation about strategy. It does feel like there's a leap into that more. I don't have to have done it myself, but as long as I know how to apply, I can help people learn within that framework. And I do wonder whether we have seen some challenges, but also opportunities in how we learn, so that we know a little bit more about not just neurodiversity as one example, but I can read things, but I want to instantly apply them and try them. So if I'm getting taught by somebody, but I can't apply it, I get really frustrated as a learner and I kind of shut down. But I know that about myself. So, I mean, the sort of pedagogical and all those kind of instruction frames seem to be getting a little bit of a stiffer test, would you say?
Yes. And too often the technology is layered on top of an existing way of teaching, an existing pedagogy. And the opportunity of thinking about how you might go about teaching afresh because the technology allows you to do things profoundly differently often gets lost. So, in the work context, too often it's been the case that e-learning is a solitary, dry, sterile, boring experience. And yet there we are on social media connecting with each other all the time. So why can't I enjoy the social aspect of learning whilst learning online? Why can't, if I find something that excites me, that I want to apply straight away, why can't I be connected with some other people who are grappling with some of those problems in real life and be part of a crowd that's helping them think about that problem? I don't know, I'm making that up. That we're not rushing to innovate around how we do some of those things because we're still kind of going, okay, we've got to impart this training. I used to pull them all into a training room or a training suite and deliver it by lecture. And, sitting in rows and listening is about the least effective form of learning that anyone has invented. I'm now going to replicate that by, instead of bringing them all into one room, having them in their own room and still lecture to them. That's just not going to work very well.
No, it's not, is it? I saw that research I think you're referring to about lectures being the least applied only this week. But I love what you painted out there, which is at the point of need, which I think is obviously something we need to think about as we get more mature, because we recognise we have a gap in knowledge and we don't know how to do it and we don't feel confident. It does feel like you want to kind of, call in the crowd and perhaps get some wisdom. Yeah.
Yes, and I think in organisational development terms, I've got a friend, Kat Skeely, who thinks about this a lot, and I'm a fan of sort of reverse mentoring, and leaders of organisations coming to the most junior people to help them perhaps learn some new digital skills and learn about that world, but also give some fresh perspective. If I want the most imaginative answers to questions, I tend to go to young people and ask them, and then I'll get a diversity, but there'll be things there that go, oh wow, I'd not thought about things in that way. And as a lot of organisations move to a flatter structure, that's a recognition that leaders need to get closer to the people who are closest to the customer. Well, the technology allows